In the shadowed grandeur of Westminster Cathedral, where the whispers of ancient hymns clung to every stone, the British royals assembled on September 16, 2025, to say goodbye to Catherine, the Duchess of Kent. At 92, her passing didn't just close a chapter of decades-long service, it sparked a fresh storm inside the House of Windsor. Amid the thick incense and solemn chants of the first modern Catholic funeral for a royal, all eyes weren't on the gilded coffin or tear-streaked faces. They were on one moment that froze the room. Prince Andrew, the disgraced Duke of York, locked his gaze on Catherine, Princess of Wales, in what witnesses later called a death stare, icy, unyielding, and full of old grudges. The look screamed of unspoken accusations, simmering resentment, and the deep fractures that have haunted the family for years. But what came next shattered the quiet rules of palace life. Just days after that frozen standoff, Prince William, the calm yet relentless heir, launched a surgical strike against his uncle that had courtiers buzzing with shock and awe. This wasn't a simple snub, it was a power play. William drew a line in the sand, banishing Andrew from key family events, starting with the sacred Christmas at Sandringham. The message couldn't have been clearer: cross the future king, especially when it comes to his wife, and pay the price. As the world digests this bold move, questions swirl like London fog over the Thames. What ignited that icy glare from Andrew? And how did it reveal the raw nerves of a monarchy already bruised by scandal? And by flexing such influence over his father, King Charles III, William didn't just shield his inner circle, he sent a bold signal of his vision for a leaner, less forgiving crown. Set against a backdrop of mourning and tradition, this clash peels back the velvet curtain on a family where loyalty is currency and betrayal carries the steepest price. For Catherine, ever the picture of poise and resilience, Andrew's glare wasn't just an insult, it was a stark reminder of the shadows still lurking in the palace corridors, shadows born from his tainted legacy. Yet, in William's decisive response, a protector emerged, tempered by personal battles. From relentless press scrutiny to the unwavering care he provides his wife through her health struggles. As palace insiders spill the details, the true weight of this showdown comes into sharp focus, revealing not just a family feud, but a seismic shift in the monarchy's delicate balance. Could this be the moment the next generation grabs the reins, cutting out the deadwood to protect the crown? Or does it risk widening the cracks that could tear centuries of tradition apart? That icy stare may have frozen the cathedral, but William's counterstrike has lit the royal story on fire, forcing every gaze toward a future where mercy takes a back seat to authority. From his own battles with the press to the steadfast care he gives his wife through her health struggles, William has proven a protector forged in fire. As palace insiders reveal the behind-the-scenes details, the full weight of this confrontation comes sharply into focus, showing not just a family feud, but a seismic shift in the monarchy's fragile balance. Could this be the moment the next generation takes control, cutting out the dead wood to safeguard the crown? Or does it risk widening the divides that could unravel centuries of pomp and protocol? That icy stare may have frozen the cathedral, but William's counterstrike set the royal narrative ablaze, turning every eye toward a future where mercy bows to mandate. Inside Westminster Cathedral, the air hung thick with the scent of beeswax candles and the weight of centuries pressing down on that crisp September morning. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, had never been just a footnote in the royal story. Her 1994 conversion to Catholicism, a quiet act of personal conviction, made her funeral an unprecedented event, the first such service for a Windsor in living memory. Reconciliation seemed miles away the moment Prince Andrew arrived, flanked by his ex-wife Sarah Ferguson in a convoy that turned heads and sparked murmurs among the gathered crowd. A rare public appearance for the Duke, who since losing his military titles and patronages in 2022 had largely stayed hidden, attending only the closest family rites like his parents' funerals. His presence at a memorial for a distant cousin by marriage was no accident. Insiders hinted it was a deliberate move to reclaim some semblance of normalcy, standing shoulder to shoulder with kin as if the Epstein scandal and Virginia Giuffre's accusations were nothing more than distant footnotes. But normalcy proved elusive. As the royals filed in, Andrew and Fergie, both 65 and defiantly inseparable despite their divorce, drew audible gasps from onlookers used to his self-imposed seclusion at Royal Lodge. Queen Camilla's last-minute withdrawal due to illness only heightened the tension, leaving a void Andrew seemed eager to fill. Photographs captured the scene with brutal clarity. Andrew, in a somber black suit, striding past barriers under police escort, his face a practiced mask of solemnity. But sharp-eyed courtiers spotted a flicker of defiance, a man unwilling to fade quietly. This marked his first major outing alongside the working royals since his fall from grace, carrying the unmistakable subtext of a challenge. The Duchess had always embodied the monarchy's softer side. Her patronage of the arts and quiet philanthropy offered a gentle counterpoint to the family's more flamboyant chapters. But Andrew's presence turned reverence into tension. As the Requiem Mass echoed with Scottish pipes mourning Queen Elizabeth II's own farewell, eyes darted not to the altar, but to the pews. Andrew, positioned just behind the Waleses in the post-service procession, loomed like a ghost from the past. Whispers rippled through the crowd, from aristocrats to Vatican dignitaries, questioning the optics. Was this a genuine olive branch or a calculated flex of his bloodline? Palace sources revealed invitations had been discreetly extended for low-key attendance, yet Andrew's arrival with Fergie, ever the socialite, injected a jolt of spectacle that clashed with the day's solemnity. In the nave's vaulted silence, where every rustle of fabric amplified the drama, this reunion of fractured branches exposed the monarchy's ongoing struggle, balancing tradition's pull against modern accountability. For a family built on the illusion of unity, Andrew's return was less a homecoming than a lit fuse, its spark ready to ignite a powder keg. The moment passed in an instant, yet its chill lingered, like frost etched across stained glass. As the final blessings ended and the royals prepared to leave Westminster Cathedral, Prince Andrew's eyes locked onto Catherine with a sharp intensity that teetered on hostility. Witnesses, from eagle-eyed photographers to hushed guests in the rear pews, later recounted the moment with a collective shiver. Soon dubbed the death stare in viral clips that swept social media within hours, it was no fleeting glance. Andrew's gaze, unblinking and piercing, lingered several beats too long, cutting through the veneer of decorum as Catherine turned briefly to acknowledge the piper's mournful tune. Her subtle tilt of the head, poised and diplomatic as ever, was noted by insiders for the slight stiffening of her posture, a silent shield against the intrusion. What made the stare so chilling was the context layered atop Andrew's checkered history. To the untrained eye, it might have read as mere family awkwardness, but insiders recognized it as a calculated salvo in a war of perception. Andrew, the beleaguered figure, has long nursed grievances against the Waleses, seeing them as architects of his isolation. Rumours swirl of private mutterings at Royal Lodge, where he rails against William's unyielding stance and Catherine's rising influence. Grainy footage captured from a congregant's phone revealed Andrew's jaw set, eyes narrowing, not as a relative, but as a rival appraising a threat by marriage. Catherine, radiant in a tailored black coat despite her ongoing recovery from cancer treatment, stood as the living emblem of the monarchy's renewal, calm, poised, unshakable. To receive such a piercing look amid the solemnity of grief struck many as more than rude. It was revolting. Social media exploded with hashtags like Andrew Stare and Protect Kate trending worldwide by evening. Commentators dissected every micro-movement. Andrew's slight lean forward, Fergie's sideways glance as if sensing the misstep. One viral analysis from a royal watcher on X called it barely disguised contempt, tying it to Andrew's perceived slights, from denied access to family estates to whispers of financial strains at his Windsor residence. Inside the cathedral, the congregation, a mix of clergy, cousins, and rare public attendees, fell into stunned silence. Even the choir's fading notes seemed to hesitate under the weight of tension. For Catherine, who has weathered countless public storms with unwavering elegance, this was a fresh barb, a reminder of the personal toll of royal life. Yet she transformed it into strength, turning vulnerability into a testament of resilience. As the group processed toward the exit, Andrew's stare lingered in the air, an invisible thread tugging at the family's fragile seams. It was more than rudeness. It was a mirror reflecting old wounds, a direct challenge to the narrative of healing the Windsors so desperately try to sell. In that frozen moment, Andrew had bet on provocation. Seemingly unaware, or uncaring, that the odds were stacked against him. The congregation's silence wasn't just shock, it was the collective intake of breath before the storm. Prince William's face told the story before a word was spoken. As the death stare played out just feet away, the Prince of Wales, ever the sentinel, shifted subtly, his broad shoulders forming a shield between his wife and the source of the chill. Eyewitnesses described his expression as a thundercloud gathering, jaw clenched beneath the polished black of mourning attire, eyes flashing with protectiveness honed by years of media assaults and personal battles. This was no distant observer. This was a husband, a father, and a future monarch whose patience for family toxicity had long since run dry. The moment, now immortalized in an iconic Reuters photograph, captured Andrew looming behind the couple, while William's hand brushed Catherine's elbow in a gesture of quiet solidarity. It was instinctive, the kind of protective move that has defined him since boyhood. From shielding his mother from paparazzi flashes to now deflecting the barbs of blood kin. Palace whispers leaked to tabloids within 24 hours, painting a portrait of simmering rage. William was livid, confided an aide close to the Waleses, not just for Kate, but for the sheer audacity of it all, turning a funeral into a personal grudge match. The service had already tested his composure. Andrew's unannounced flair for drama, arriving with Fergie and drawing gasps from the pavement crowd, had set a discordant tone. But the stare crossing into sacred territory, that was the final straw. William, who has carried the monarchy's burdens with pragmatism bordering on ruthlessness, saw it as a line that could no longer be tolerated. His history with Andrew is frost-lined. The 2019 Christmas exclusion after the Epstein photos surfaced, the 2022 revocation of titles reportedly pushed by William behind closed doors. Until now, protocol demanded a veneer of civility, especially at rites where a duke's attendance symbolized blood over blemish. No longer. As the family stepped onto the cathedral's stone threshold, William's body language spoke louder than words, taut, commanding, a silent warning echoing across the palace grounds. He angled his frame to eclipse Andrew from view, speaking quietly with King Charles while Catherine maintained her composure, offering gentle waves to well-wishers. Viral clips, dissected by body language experts on morning shows, captured every micro-expression: a furrowed brow, a clenched grip on the order of service, a calculated step forward that subtly isolated his uncle. William's fury was layered. It sprang from protectiveness toward Catherine, whose calm under pressure has anchored the family. It reflected his own scars, the loss of Diana sharpening his intolerance for unchecked entitlement, and it carried strategic weight. Andrew's antics threatened to tarnish the Wales's carefully curated image of modernity and merit. In the quiet of the car en route to the private reception, sources say William made his first call to a trusted advisor, laying the groundwork for what would become his boldest palace power play yet. His reaction was no snap judgment. It was a measured strike, a spark from a man ready to wield the throne's shadow as a sword, ensuring a single ill-judged glance would echo through royal corridors for seasons to come. By the evening of September 17th, as the funeral's echoes faded into London twilight, William had transformed personal outrage into institutional command. In a private audience at Buckingham Palace, he presented King Charles with an ultimatum courtiers are already calling the most audacious assertion of an heir's prerogative in a generation. Andrew shot back, "Or the monarchy does." The words landed not with thunder, but with the chilling calm of inevitability, highlighting William's growing grip on the family narrative. Leaks to glossy weeklies revealed the full extent of the ultimatum. A comprehensive freeze-out, no Sandringham for Christmas, no Easter reprieves at Windsor, and a blanket ban on Andrew appearing alongside the Wales at any public or semi-public event. Even funerals, the last bastions of obligatory kinship, would require discreet attendance far from the front rows. This was William at his most unyielding, channeling lessons from his grandmother's firm hand while wielding a modern edge of zero tolerance. King Charles, already navigating health concerns and institutional slimming, found himself cornered. Though protocol prevented him from formally ejecting his brother, William's leverage lay in his star power and public support. Polls consistently crowned the Wales as the monarchy's champions, their relatable poise a bulwark against Republican currents. To defy his son would be to risk isolation, a gamble Charles at 76 could ill afford. Insiders described the meeting as tense yet transformative. William outlined a 6-point strategy to marginalise Andrew and Fergie: financial audits of Royal Lodge tenancies, severed patronages for affiliated charities, and discreet diplomatic nudges to international allies, discouraging the couple's attendance at high-profile galas. The message was unmistakable: cross the air and the royal orbit closes tight. The Christmas ban, delivered through absence rather than decree, struck hardest, recalling Andrew's 2019 exile after the disastrous Newsnight interview. "It's William showing the world who's really in charge," marvelled one courtier, while another quipped, "Charles wears the crown, but William holds the keys." The ultimatum's roots traced back to the death stare, which William saw as a blatant breach of the unspoken truce. Attend, but behave. Andrew's violation, coupled with his post-service attempt to sidle in for chatter, finally tipped the scales. For Catherine, it was vindication. After months of enduring subtle barbs from the York camp and whispers that her ambition threatened tradition, William's move was both protective and preservative, insulating the core working royals from scandal's splash. As the story leaked, the press feasted. Headlines screamed of William's wrath and Andrew's Arctic exile, with op-eds speculating if this marked the start of a palace purge. Yet beneath the drama lay careful strategy. By framing it as a necessity for the monarchy's survival, William positioned himself as steward, not tyrant, turning his father's acquiescence into a reinforcement of the crown rather than a fracture in its authority. The ultimatum was no tantrum. It was a blueprint forged in the wake of a stare, a family reforged in resolve. Prince Andrew's royal lodge, that sprawling Windsor estate of faded grandeur, must now feel like a gilded cage with the bars drawn tighter. William's directive landed like a portcullis, slamming shut doors long ajar for the Duke and his steadfast companion, Sarah Ferguson. No longer an occasional guest at family feasts, Andrew now faces a social Siberia, his calendar stripped of holidays that once masked isolation. Christmas at Sandringham, with its crackling fires and carol-filled walks, becomes a phantom invitation, a deliberate void that stings deeper than any lost title. Fergie, ever the survivor of scandals from toe-sucking to cash-for-access whispers, sees her orbit constricted too. Charity galas and book tours are now shadowed by the Wales frost. The pair who leaned on each other through divorces, diagnoses, and public disgrace now confront a united front from the inner circle, one that whispers of obsolescence, leaving Andrew and Fergie to reckon with their diminishing place in a palace that no longer tolerates their drama. Financially, the screws turn subtler, but no less unyielding. Whispers swirl of tenancy reviews for Royal Lodge, that 30-room Windsor estate long funded by sovereign coffers, with aides hinting at relocation to a humbler Frogmore cottage, the same ill-fated perch once occupied by Harry and Meghan. Andrew's military pension, already clawed back, offers no reprieve, while Fergie's patronages undergo quiet audits, lest Epstein's shadow resurface in donor ledgers. The sting here is personal devastation disguised as policy. Andrew, 65 and unrepentant, has railed privately against William's so-called witch hunt, sources say, viewing the ban as payback for perceived slights, from his Epstein denials to steadfast loyalty to the late Queen. Yet his defiance, the same bravado that birthed the death stare, now isolates him further. Fergie, navigating her own battles with cancer, offers ballast, but even she senses the tide turning, confiding to friends about a family at war with itself. Publicly, the York's Project Defiance persists, joint appearances at lesser events, Fergie's memoir teasing unvarnished truths, but the exile bites hard. No longer the jovial uncle at Trooping the Colour, Andrew becomes a footnote. His Windsor walks now echo with solitude. For the children, Beatrice and Eugenie, the ripple is wrenching, a reminder that even blood ties cannot withstand this storm. Torn between loyalties, Beatrice and Eugenie now find their own low-profile lives caught in the crossfire. Beatrice's budding diplomatic whispers falter under scrutiny, while Eugenie's Hollywood ties strain against lingering royal residue. The ultimatum's genius lies in its precision. It punishes without spectacle, eroding influence through absence. Andrew's private retorts, leaked via allies, decry ungrateful youth, but they ring hollow against William's ironclad mandate. In this fallout, the York enclave shrinks, a microcosm of the monarchy's broader cull, where survival demands not just blood, but unwavering fealty. The death stare may have been impulsive, but its cost is a dynasty's quiet disassembly, one excluded place setting at a time. King Charles III, architect of the slimmed-down monarchy, now navigates its sharpest paradox, balancing fraternal sentiment against filial force. William's ultimatum thrust him into a vice, his brother's pleading eyes clashing with his son's steely gaze, all under the glare of a nation hungry for decisiveness. At 76, lines etched by his own health battles, Charles had envisioned a reign of harmony, pruning excess while preserving essence. Andrew, the sibling he once shielded through scandals, now embodies the excess he can no longer protect. Speculation swirls. Will this extend to Harry, thawing transatlantic frost, or hardening lines against all outliers? As Christmas approaches, Sandringham's table will have conspicuous gaps where the Yorks once sat. The message is clear. The crown endures not through indulgence, but through ironclad intent. William has not just avenged a stare, he has redrawn the family map, charting a course where duty trumps the dynasty's dregs. The monarchy is tested, a new standard set, poised for reinvention. Its future is a canvas painted in resolve. What do you think, reader? Does William's bold gambit save the throne or strain its seams? Drop your verdict in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to keep up with the latest royal revelations.